Morning. Today we're talking about families and how to survive them. Why do we get triggered? And how can we complete our relationship with our family members? What does that even mean? Completing your relationship means getting over yourself, bringing it all into present time, recognizing that you've been projecting on them all this time. And completing it means seeing them as they are. And the key is accepting them as they are. But it's very hard. Why do we get triggered? Let's look at that first. We get triggered because often as not, our family has witnessed us creating our identity. And most people in our lives that we meet kind of believe our identity that we project out, but our family have a history, have a version, have an opinion, have a judgment. And they're the hardest ones to convince that we are who we're now projecting ourselves to be, which of course we're not. And it can give rise to all kinds of different things. Also, our family are the ones who in our formative years were most likely around us. And traumatic things happen. And in our trauma, we invent meanings. I'll give you an example. My mother, who is now departed, when I was very young, when I was 6 years old, she sent me to boarding school. And I didn't know why. I didn't know that she sent me to boarding school because that's what they did in those days, and she thought it was the best thing for me and all this. I thought it must be because I'm not good enough. I thought maybe she doesn't love me because I'm bad. Maybe I'm being punished for something, I wonder what. So I created all these meanings. And those meanings I started to kind of believe in. They were at a very formative age. And I lived in that conversation with myself about not being good enough, about being bad, about being unloved and unwanted. I lived in that conversation, which was born out of trauma and not true, but I lived in it for decades. And it infected my relationship with my mother. And in the latter days before the healing came, I couldn't spend any time with her without having a blazing argument and tremendous friction. And then I did this process where I looked at my complaints of my mother. She's so selfish. She hasn't got time for me. All she's got time for is herself, and all these complaints. And then I was directed to look at the payoffs for me holding those complaints. Because I had it, of course, that it was her fault that I wasn't who I thought I should be. And I had it was her fault that my relationships weren't going the way they were going. And I had it was her fault that, basically my life was not as it should be. And so the payoff in seeing her as this was that I got to not have to be great, not have to make an effort. I could play victim and have it be her fault. I could judge her, I could punish her, I could withdraw my love and have it all be her fault. And when I realized all this, it was quite a revelation. I thought, my God, I'm just making it all her fault. And by playing the victim, of course, I was completely powerless to do anything. A victim can't do anything. And then somebody said, okay, well, what has it cost you being this way with your mother? What does it cost you? And I realized it cost me everything. It didn't feel good in myself because I wasn't being authentic. I was caught up in a kind of projection, transferring my shit onto her. So it didn't make me feel good. It made me not self-expressed. It made me kind of stuck as a 6-year-old child, even though I was 20, 30, 40. Part of me was stuck. And this is something very interesting. This is something to look at. Are you stuck anywhere? At what age are you stuck? Waiting for resolution. Anyway, so then what did it cost me? Well, it cost me my relationship with myself. It also cost me my relationship with my mother, the one who from whom I came into this world, who gave me the greatest gift of all. And that also infected everything else, because if you don't deal with your primal relationships with your mother and your father, then you play them out everywhere. You play them out with the police, you play them out with other men, you play them out with authority figures, you play them out with women, you play them out with people who look like your mother, you play them out with people who sound like your mother. And everybody can trigger those issues until they're resolved. And that's what was happening to me. And you can't, people think, okay, what I'll do is I'll just ignore them and I'll never speak to them again, and that should be fine. We don't get on, fine. And so they leave and think that's a way of dealing with the dysfunction. But it isn't. Because you meet your mum, I was meeting my mum in other women. In fact, I started to meet my mum in pretty much every woman. And issues that I'd had with my father, of course, I had a very bad then relationship with all kind of authority figures. And so you can't get away from what has to be accepted, what has to be understood, what has to be released. You can't get away from it. And you might, then some people sometimes say, oh, but I did have a big problem with my dad, but he's dead. My dad now is dead. And no, so it's too late. It's not too late, because he may be dead in the physical way, but he's still a character in your psyche that you need to come up to speed with, complete with. So what is this completion? Well, let's just deal with the triggering again. So what triggers, if you're not dealing with stuff that is up for looking at, you get it everywhere. Anybody can trigger it until it can get to a crisis point where literally everything is triggering what you need to be looking at. And so that's a time when life forces you. It drags you into some kind of awakeness. So what triggers it, and how can we complete? So the completion is when you come to the place, and this is the same in relationships as well. It's not just with your parents or your family members. This is in relationships. When is a relationship closed? How do you get closure? People say, oh, I haven't got closure. How do you get closure? You get closure, from my point of view, you get closure when you can take 100% responsibility for your experience of that person or of that relationship. How I got my mother was given by who I was being that she was. Other people didn't argue with her every time they met her. Some people really liked her. She was very popular. People would call her up and speak with her. But I got her that way, and towards the end of that phase, it was literally horrific. I couldn't be with her more than 3 or 4 minutes before this deep-rooted anger that I wasn't really in touch with would be triggered by something really small, like the way she was sitting would trigger me, or the way she wouldn't share the TV remote, it would trigger me. And all the boiling, unresolved anger towards her, coming out of who I was being that she was, which was that she was bad and wrong for putting me in school, that would bubble up. So the healing came when I realized that who I was being that she was gave me how I got her. She wasn't actually that way. And people go, no, no, but she actually is that way. Both me and my sister, we agree she is that way. No, she's not. Because the real truth is there isn't a way that she is. Who you're being that she is, who I was being that my mother was, gave me how I got her. And who I was being that she was contaminated by what had happened in the past and what I'd made of it and the meanings that I'd invented. I invented those meanings, that I wasn't good enough, that she didn't want me, that she didn't love me, that she was bad and she was wrong. I invented all those meanings. It wasn't the truth about her. It wasn't how she necessarily saw herself or how other people got her. I got her that way. And through who I was being that she was, that's how I got her. And that was the cause of my misery. That I had transferred my stuff onto her, is what I began to see. That I had projected my stuff onto her. And why? For the payoffs. For the payoffs. And it's an incredible thing to kind of figure out, okay, what you're being this way about your mother, or being this way that you are about your father. Okay, let's leave that for a moment. But what's the payoff? Who do you get to be by being this way about your mother? And I got to, as I said before, who did I get to be by being this way about my mum? I got to be rebellious. I got to play victim. I got to be selfish. I got to withdraw. I got to sulk. I got to not have to be great. I got to rebel. There were all kinds of payoffs that came, or what I thought were payoffs. But obviously the cost is always much greater than the payoff. So exposing this, then I started to see, oh my God, that it's who I'm being that she is that gives me how I get her. And that's why I'm so angry. But really, she is not the cause of my anything. She gave me birth. It's quite the opposite. It's because of her that I've got everything. And I began to see, that if I played the victim, oh, I was sent away to boarding school at 6, and it's affected me forever, and I'm damaged, and my inner child is broken, and if I stayed there, I would be like that, because that who I was being that I was a broken, lost child, that gave me how I got myself. It wasn't the truth about me. The inner child is not actually who you are. It's a construct in the psychological self to explain certain behaviors, but it's not a real thing. So if I maintained that position, then I would be stuck in a victim, because a victim you can't do anything when you're a victim. It's only when you take responsibility that you can start shifting stuff. So then I did, and I realized, oh my God, I am responsible for how I feel. It was me that projected onto her. It's not my business who she is to herself. I'll never know how she gets herself. You'll never know how your mother gets herself. You'll never know how your father gets himself. You're only ever going to be looking from the outside in, but they're living from the inside out. And it's the same the other way around. My mother will never know, or she never knew, how I got myself. She could intuit things, but she could not know. In that sense, we're alone, because only I am in here looking out. So what happened? Yeah, so then I started to realize this, and I came to this place where I thought, you know what? Who I am being that my mother is has given me how I got her. I can transform who I'm being that she is, having recognized what was actually going on. So I did. And I called her up, because that completion, that realization happened in a day. And I called her up and said, Mum, I need you to listen to me just till I've finished, and then I'll listen to you without interruption. I don't want to argue with you. I just want to say something. And I said, look, Mum, I've realized something amazing. I've realized that I've blamed you for everything. And coming out of the fact you sent me to school at so young, I blamed you and had that be the cause of everything that's wrong in my life. And it's your fault. And it's not fixable. And that allowed me to space my life right out. And I blamed you. But I've realized it wasn't your fault at all. That the truth is, you did what you thought was best for me. And even if you weren't keen on parenting, for whatever reason, that was just who you were at the time. And come to this place where I accept you as you are. You're a work in progress, and I'm a work in progress, and I accept you as you are. And where forgiveness is needed, I hope that you can forgive me and that I can forgive you. And I realize that my unresolved self has got in the way of me seeing you as you actually are. And so who I was being that you were, part of that beingness was my unresolvedness. My perspective of you was warped. It wasn't a clear seeing. And that's why it's been so difficult. But I want you to know that I've got over that now. And that I see you and I forgive you and I accept you as you are. And I said to her, you know, it's cost me a lot and it's cost us a lot holding on to this. And the new possibility that I want for us is to, for the rest of our time together, that we can be happy and loving and care for each other. Now, my mum was a great talker. She'd talk all the time. But when I'd finished that, there was this silence on the phone. And then I went, Mum, are you there? And she said, I can't imagine in my whole life hearing anything more wonderful than that. And then I thought, well, this is just fantastic. You know, this is real. We have really completed a long journey of contention. And then I saw her about 2 or 3 weeks later in real life, and I went to see her, and I was a bit nervous about it. And it was just beautiful being with her. It was all fresh and new and simple. And then we had about 20 years more, 25 years more maybe, that she remained alive. And we never argued again. I think once we did, actually. I got hung over. And we did, yeah. But basically speaking, there was no more friction between us. We had accepted each other. And out of that acceptance came a beautiful love. And so when the time of her passing came, when I was there, and leading up to it, there was just really a lot of love between us, you know, and nothing really needed to be said. It was just a feeling of completion And after completion, there's just love. But after the work's been done, then if you've got time, still got time with that person, then how beautiful. You can just be in a beautiful place with them. So how do we complete it? We take full responsibility for whatever we felt or said or did. You feel anything. No one can make you say anything. No one can make you think anything. No one can make you do anything. That's not the path of the heart. That's the path of the victim. You always have the choice. Sometimes that choice comes very quickly, but you do always have the choice about how you're going to respond to that person. And so it was the same with my father. You know, I remember with him, he had been a prisoner of war, so his perspective was quite strange in some ways. About he didn't have the same values as everybody else. He didn't like religious people, for example. But I got it when I was 18. I got into meditation, and I really thought it would help him. So I kept going on about it. And one night I kept going on about it, and he ran off. We walked out and went into the pub. And when he came back, I was still in front of the TV 2 hours later. And as he walked in, there was a song about meditation. And I said, "Oh, Dad, good timing." Back to our and he just exploded. And you know, we had a fight, a physical fight, in which he tried to kill me. And I ended up with my head over the fireplace, thing around the fireplace, and he's got his knee on my neck, and he's about to smash my face. And I said to him, "Look, it's not me you want to kill." And he sort of went, "Oh," and saw in that moment that he'd been projecting all this stuff onto me, but it was coming from within him that was unresolved, and he was projecting it onto me. And he ran off, and then I ran off. But when I came back, he was very grateful. 2 or 3 months later, he was very grateful, because that was the time my demons left me. And after that, we had a kind of agreement to accept each other. We literally said it. I'm not going to fight you anymore. I'm not going to try and change you anymore. I accept that you have your path. And he said, "I accept you. I accept that you are who you are. You may not be who I want you to be, but you are who you are, and I trust that." And I said, "Okay, you know, I accept you." Acceptance is not a small thing. Accepting someone is who they are, and that life's got them. Life's got their back. Just like life has got you. Life's got your back. It'll be okay. And that's no small thing when you come to accept them. When you stop resisting them, because the real truth about acceptance is what you can't. I can't accept my father. I can't accept that he's done that. That's just, I can't. I'm sorry. That is one. No. Some things are unforgivable. But what you can't accept is your stuff. And when you're ready to see that, you see that. What you can't accept is your stuff. That person accepted about themselves. You have to accept it about. You have to accept it. And in accepting it, something amazing happens. You can be carrying a judgment that costs you in terms of how you interrelate with somebody for years and decades. But when you come to the place where in one moment this completion can come, where you accept them as they are, it's not your bloody business. You accept them as they are. Right there and then, a freedom can come. A release can come. It's almost, you know, in that saying, isn't there? To err, to make mistakes is human, but forgiveness is divine. And it's the same with acceptance. It verges on the miraculous. When we accept ourselves, Okay, I'm not who I thought I should be or could be or whatever, but I accept myself as I am. I accept the darkness in me. I accept the light in me. I accept the brilliance in me. I accept the stupidity in me. I accept all that I am. And when that moment for acceptance comes, recognize it and do it, because you can let go of a huge amount of baggage just like that. I believe in what I called rapid breakthrough therapy. Rapid breakthrough therapy. When you're ready, you can put your burden down. When you're ready, you can complete and restore love with your parents and your family. Somebody who you've had issues with for a long time, once you accept them and take responsibility and realize that who you're being that they are is giving you how you're getting them, and you're choosing to be that way about them because it serves you in some subtle, perhaps hidden way. Look to yourself. You're not going to change them. Your position of judgment for their own good hasn't changed them at all. It's affected the love. And we need to restore the love. How? By accepting, by forgiving, by recognizing that you're not so great. There's a lot of what underlies our resentments and frictions in our families is we think we're better than. We think we're more clear than. We think we're more spiritual than. Which gives us license to judge. And so we do, and we find them guilty, and then we think, okay, because we've judged them and found them guilty, we have to punish them, and we withdraw. And a lot of the time, we withdraw really because we don't want to look in that mirror, because it's too bright. But one thing we should never forget is that your mother loves you above and beyond everything. What you should not forget is that your father loves you above and beyond everything. And that is a truth of the heart. And it will never change. And whatever has happened doesn't change that. We all make mistakes. We all fuck up. We all have regrets of things that we've said and done. So completion comes when you can accept people as they are. When you can accept yourself as you are. But we're not static. Look at yourself. You're not static, are you? You're always changing. You're evolving. You're understanding. You're growing. And if you get earnest about that, you'll experience it more. You can transform your relationships. When you realize that, how you get them is given by who you're being that they are. How you get them is given by who you're being that they are. What kind of space you are for them. What you're allowing them. Are you a place where they can be their best? Or are you a place that automatically sucks out their nastiness? I was a place where my mother, for example, couldn't be her shining self. I wouldn't allow it in the way that I was being. And this understanding of who you're being that something is gives you how you get it is crucial. It's a revelation. Because then that gives you the responsibility. And victimhood is then over. Let's just see if we've got any questions or comments. How do you know when you're ready? That's great, isn't it? How do you know when you're ready? Well, what do you think? If you ask your heart, am I ready to forgive? Am I ready to accept? What's your heart going to say? Is it ever going to say, well, not quite? No. No. Your heart, as soon as you ask your heart, am I ready? They'll go, of course. Trust, love. You're such a beautiful being. Come with love. Full acceptance, full forgiveness. Restore the love. If you're not having good relationships, it's probably because you haven't restored the love with your parents. Restore the love with your parents, and you'll no longer be having to act out that unresolvedness in your relationships. And then your relationships get freed up, and you stop bleeding your unresolved psychological self into it, and you can just love. When enough is enough. How do you know you're ready when enough is enough? Okay. I've had enough. I'm going to give my mum a call tomorrow on the solstice. Well done. How great. The thing is this. When you have a healing conversation with your mum, ask her to listen to you without interruption, and then afterwards listen to her without interruption. Because this thing of not interrupting is very important when it comes to speaking from your heart. Forgive her. Accept her. Own your shit that you've been projecting onto her. And inspire her and touch her with your vision of how you'd love it to be. Let her know that you've got over yourself. It's a fantastic thing. And it's restore the love. The love is there. Tremendous love. You do love your mother. She does love you. And this psychological nonsense has been in the way. I've recently gone through this experience with my daughter. How fabulous. Because there's nothing that strengthens a relationship between a mother and a daughter like moving it forward, keeping it moving it forward. We were like that, now we're like this, and a great friendship comes, and a great love comes. When, has anybody ever said, ever, that moving with a loving intention brings a bad result? Has anybody ever said that? Is it written anywhere? Oh, don't move with a loving intention because it will bring a bad result. No. And everybody can move with a loving intention. You choose it. You're a lover. Is there a deeper identity that you have than being a lover? Is there something you want more than to love? Awareness is key, really, so the reactive behavior ceases. Yeah. That's one way of doing it. There's no sorting out the psychological self. No one ever did it. No one ever even said they did it. It has to be put down. But at the same time, there are some things that we actually need to become present to in the psychological self. And what we've been talking about in this talk, it's not on the ultimate level. It's more like there are some things, that we have to do. We have to sometimes we actually have to say to somebody, I accept you and I'm sorry. Or sometimes we actually have to forgive people consciously, not just rely on awareness to kind of sort it out. We actually have to take some responsibility. We have to say what's in our hearts. and recognize that our perspective is contaminated by who we are being that we were and who we were being back then. A lot of our thoughts about the negative stuff of families and parents and relationships all come from this, from ideas that we generated about ourselves and life in a time of trauma. So the ideas were born of trauma, not of reality. We have to see that. I projected my amazing relationship I have with my mum onto wanting the same with my daughters. We have recently started to accept each other and our relationships as ours, not mine and my mum's. Well, that's really great, isn't it? That's really great, because any kind of formula projected on to something, even if it's a really great formula, if you try and reenact it, you're not your mum. They're not you. You're not them. They're individuals, constantly blossoming and flowering. And so are you. And you'll find that it will probably be even better, because love grows. Each relationship leads to a better understanding of love. So you'll probably find that in this generation with your daughters, something wonderful will happen. So that's great too. I sometimes feel, and with mine, I can be with her, but I cannot feel I recognize her as my mother. I feel I cut that bit out. Chances are, if you trace it back, you cut that bit out for a reason. And try and track that down. What was that reason? Is it because, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Were you trying to hurt her? Were you trying to punish her for something? Or was there some other reason, perhaps? But you would have done it for a reason. Try and find that reason and figure out, does it hurt her, you doing that? How does she respond to that? What can't you accept? How can you restore the full love? These are questions to ask your heart. And when you're ready to hear the answer, your heart will tell you. It's not like rocket science. How can I restore the love? Be that one. I'm going to do this. Love, love, love. I do forgive her and him. It's hard though. I will surrender. Yeah, I mean, there's often it's hard because our ego's involved, isn't it? We make it into a thing about winning and losing, whereas really, what we want to be is the one who restores love, the one who gives the victory to love. That's winning. But how beautiful! I am going to do this. I am going to do this. That's you. That's your resolve. That's who you are. Your choices define you, define the part you play in this life. I am going to do this, you say. How beautiful. Will there be help from hidden places in the doing of that? Will angels walk with you when you move to restore love? I think so. Literally sat in tears here. 2 days ago I had a bit of realization that I was pushing and rebelling and trying harder and trying to be perfect because I deeply felt that she didn't love me. I had the thought that she does love me and always has. And now, as I was free to let go of this stuff, Tim, your timing is amazing. Well, love's timing. Love. Everything gets so cerebral, doesn't it? So cerebral. Concepts, ideas, and we completely forget love. Love, which is everything. I also realized that I put myself on the pedestal of wanting to be a perfect mum. When I made a mistake, I would beat myself up. Over and over again, I have recognized that I am only human. This doesn't stop my unconditional love for my children. This is it. Love is a strange thing. We have the idea that love is for a reason. And if that reason shifts, then the love goes. But love isn't like that. Love is not for a reason. You might go, oh no, but I really love the shape of her body. I love her because she's got such lovely eyes. No, that's not why you love her. There isn't a reason. Love isn't in the realm of reason, is it? So whatever happens, the love remains. Yeah, trying to be perfect is a sure way to not be. You just exactly as you are. That's perfect. You exactly as you are, doing your best. That's perfect. And anyway, who's judging? That internal commentator. If who you're being, that you are, is that I'm not good enough, it doesn't matter what you do, you'll still get a commentary saying you're not good enough, whether it was fine or not. So you have to let go of I'm not good enough once you've seen what the payoffs for holding on to it are. You're fine. You're great, Mum. I'm only human. Thanks so very much. Sat here in tears and I release a lot of emotion. Wonderful, wonderful. What if the other party isn't ready? Good question. The thing is this. You've no way of knowing that. And you thinking that you know that is a subtle way of manipulating the situation so that you don't have to move from your heart and, oh, I would, but they're not ready. They're just not ready. I know they're just not ready. You don't know. You can't know. And it doesn't require them to be ready. For you to accept them, for you to forgive them, for you to open up and own who you've been that they were, that gave you how you got them, they don't need to be ready. When you have a healing conversation, one where you ask them to listen and they give you that agreement, and you speak from your heart, not from your concepts, not from the story is irrelevant. In a relationship, two people split. The woman goes to talk with her friends, and they say, "Oh, what happened?" And then she will go, "Oh, you know what he did?" And they'll go, "No, what?" And they'll have this big thing about what, and this narrative will be what he did, and she'll be in the right, and he'll be in the wrong. Then he'll go off with his mates and go, "What happened? Did you leave her?" And go, "Yeah." "Why?" "Oh, you know what she did." And he'll take it from, and the two stories will be completely different. Neither of them are true. That's the point. Neither of them are true. The juice, the healing, isn't in the story. It's in the heart. So trust the universe. How do you know if they're not ready or if they're not ready? You don't know that. Trust the universe. Somebody can become ready in a second. Your loving intention, your loving vibe can make them ready. And even if they're not, it doesn't really matter, because your expression will help them either way. How do you make sure you don't slip back into old ego-driven ways and patterns that are so long established? Yeah, don't worry about it. Just try and be awake. It is difficult. But with my mum, when I did it, it wasn't a resolve to be nice. It wasn't about, oh, I'll resolve to be nice. Resolutions don't work, do they? You say I'm going to give up smoking on New Year's Day, and then by the evening you've got a fag on. It's not a resolution to be nice and to forgive. You have to be authentic about this. You have to really, really see what's being said and own it. And that is transformation. There's no going back from transformation. It's not a mental thing. It's not like a resolution. It's deeper than that. It's an authentic seeing that you're having about who you've been, that person was. And you're recognizing for real that it was who you were being that they were that gave you how you got them. And it's for real. But if it slips back, you keep going. You keep going. So I think there we are. So I'm saying all this because with both my mother and my father, when they died, we were complete, fully complete. And there was love and no resentment, and everything was expressed. And we were in present time loving. And previous to that, for about 20 odd years after the healing happened with both of them, we lived like that. And before that, it was horrendous. So I'm not speaking from theory here. This has happened to me, and I want to share this possibility with you, that you can complete your relationships and you can restore the love. And you know you can. There's never been a better time, literally. No blame. No judgments. Who cares? Your judgments are contaminated. They say everything about you. Your judgments of them are you. Can't you see? Get your worst judgments about the people you're in conflict with, write them down, and then own them. Find them in you, and you'll find them for sure. Loving, forgiving, accepting, sharing. That's the beautiful you. No ill comes from that. Everything else is questionable. But no ill comes from being the loving being that you are. Oh, we've got one more. How do you protect yourself from negative, destructive behaviors from the parent going forward once the armor is removed? Well, the thing is, that wasn't armor. And it was horrible wearing it. Admit it. It was horrible wearing that so-called armor. It invited attack. If somebody's got a gun, who are they going to most likely to shoot? Another person pointing a gun at them, or somebody who's completely peaceful? They're going to shoot the person, they're most likely to shoot the person with the other gun. Armor is not it. Who you're being that person is gives you how you get them, is the point you move from. So be that you're not a place to be attacked. That seeing it as negative energy is an aggressive act. It's passive aggression because it's based on a judgment that makes them wrong for who they're being. And there's still a great big space between you. What you accept about a person that you previously couldn't, they're so negative. I can't accept negativity. How could I possibly accept it? What you accept about a person that you couldn't accept before becomes endearing very often. So it's like you go, oh yeah, there you go. There you go. And so the thing that would have made you react or recoil or put up your defenses, now you see compassionately. You start intuiting and understanding where they're at from a non-judgmental place. Your strength is love. Your strength is being out of your mind. Your strength is when you're out of judgment. You're not in a place of contention. You're in a place of acceptance. This is how things are. And this can really help people. Love is true, love is pure. Love is your protection. My feelings would be your acceptance of them and who they are. Once this happens, their behavior is their behavior. Yeah. It's so wonderful. It's so wonderful, love, the power of love. The main thing is don't make it about them, make it about you. And then once you found and owned all your shit, who you were being, that they were, gave you how you got them, gave you how you got them. Coming out of who you were being. Nobody else got them like you got them. And there isn't a way that they are. This is the key fundamental that allows you to own the whole thing. And then give them space. Okay then. Tomorrow is a special day for love. So I'll be back at 9:30 tomorrow. And I'd like to see you then. Thanks for all your comments. Do your best to restore love.